let me record for the section. So for today, we are going to review our chapter 5 that is going to do the while loop, if-else loop, and some other things. So today we are going to do the simple problems in our chapter. The first one is the 5.11, which is to find the smallest value. It requires you to write an application that finds the smallest of several integers. Assume that the first value specifies the number of values you input from the user. And that means we are going to write an application, and the first value should be the number of the integers we are going to read from the console, right? And the others are the values we have to do the comparisons to make sure that we find the smallest of the integers we inputted into the application. So let me change to the IntelliJ and write the application. So if you are not familiar with how to code, you can code with me, or you can just watch me code, and then I will upload the code for you, and then you can rerun the code. Here we are going to create a Java class named small. Okay, as we are going to find our smallest integers, right? So we should first do the main method. Okay, we use the PSVM to create it. After that, we create the scanner class, right? So that we can fetch the user input from the console automatically. Okay, then we declare some variables. Let's say, okay, we should have something to record the smallest each time we make comparison. So we define the variable as integer, the type is int, and then the name is the variable name is small. And we initialize it as 0. And then we should declare another of variable, because the first integer we input is the number of integers we should input, right? So we should have some variables to indicate the total numbers required or we are designing to input. So here we use the int number. We initialize it to be 0 as the number entered by user. So we can start writing our code. Here we give a user prompt. That is we say enter number of integers. And then we use some variables we create some user variables to fetch each line of the user input. We say we declare an int and integer. And we use scanner class input dot next int to fetch the numbers we stroke in the keyboard. So that is the integer. Okay, then we have made all the preparations for the loop we are going to go walk through. So here, and then we can write a for loop statement, right? Because the number is indicating how many numbers we are going to input. That means here we know how many times we are going to make the comparisons. As long as we know how many iterations, it's better for us to use the for loop. So here we write the for clause as for, and we initialize a counter, which is equal to 1. This is the initialization for the for loop, means that our loop is counting from 1 to the number. So here we say counter, that is small or equal to, okay, the integer we fetched. Since here we fetched a number, and the number will give it to here, and it will compare with the count instance. So in this case, this indicates to how many times we should going to walk through this logic. After that, the count should be increment by 1. Okay, then we are going to do our main logic for the for loop here. So we can try, we say, let's give some user prompt sort. Here we indicate, please enter the integers we are going to compare. Going to compare. And after that, you use the number which we used to initialize to be 0. But now it is no longer be 0 because we are going to use the scanner input, right? Since we have fetched some numbers using the input instance. And then once we fetch some integers from the user input, we assign such integer to the number. So from here, the number is no longer to be 0. After that, we make our comparison. Like if the counter is equal to 1, that means we only enter. Oh, here is supposed to be count. So that means there is only 1 numbers we input, right? So the smallest should be the numbers we just fetched from the user input, right? So here is the logic. However, what if I enter more than 1 numbers to make the comparison? So in this case, we are going to do the else if statement. Else if, so the fallback condition is that the number what if the number is smaller than the small, right? So we should make the comparison. If the number we just fetched is smaller than the small, so the smallest should be updated to the number. Okay, currently they are the same, right? But the logic is a little bit different because they are making comparisons. We can complete this application, then we will debug it so we can trace for this program. So after that, we can sort out for the result that the smallest integer is D. We're using the placeholder to stand for the smallest number. So here I should change it to F because I'm formatting the output. So let's try. Oh, sorry. Here is the little bit. Stop and go. So please enter number of integers. Suppose currently we have only one integers, right? And then it will indicate that enter the numbers you are going to compare. So suppose I'm only entered 50. I only have 50 here. So the smallest integer is 50. Okay, it's fine. But what if I want to compare 3 integers, right? Like here. Enter the integers we are going to compare. The first one is 1. The second one is 5. The third one is 30. So it output that the smallest integer is 1. And it seems that it is perfectly aligned with the problem requirements, right? So that is done with this application. But however, I would like to debug it so that you can trace the if-else statement and the comparisons, how the values exchanged by the number and the small. All right, I will stop this application and using the debug mode, as you can see here, right? So I will, firstly, I set the breakpoint in line 13, and then I click the debug. Okay, fine. Here in the console, it indicates me that please enter number of integers. Here I enter 3 here. So the system stops at the line 3, which is the for clause. We can see that here we already have the small, and we initialize it to be 0, and we have the variable number is also 0, and we have the integer. The integer here is 3. It indicates the number of integers we are going to input, right? So after that, let me go down, step into it. And then after that, we have one more variables in our stack. That is the count, because count is the initialization for our for loop. That means our for loop is starting from the count, which is equal to 1, and will stop when count is smaller or equal to, the count will stop when the for loop is going to be stopped when the count is over integer, which refers to the 3. That means this for loop will have 3 iterations. So then let's go to the next line, stepping 2. Here it requires us to input the numbers to make the comparison. So here we are going to go back to the console to input the numbers we are going to make comparison. Here, suppose the first number is 20. Okay, I stroked the enter of my keyboard, and then I will go back to the thread and values and step into. Let's see what will happen. Now the cursor is currently pointing to the line 70 here. And as you can see that we have one more variable, that is the number, which is 20. And this is fetched from the user input that we just entered in the console. And then the number is 20 and the count is 1, right? So that means if count is 1, that means here this one is true. As you can see here, it indicates in the IntelliJ, this Boolean expression is equal to true. That means we are going to do this block. the number will be assigned to the small. So let's get step into. Okay, here. The small is 0, the number is 20. Now this is have already been done. Let's go. Okay, now as you can see, since we just do the line 18 here, so the number is assigned to the small. After this one, the small is becoming 20. It is no longer to be 0. And after that, we go back to our for clause because here the count is incremented by 1 now, and we are going to do our second round of the iteration. As you can see, count is 2. So here we are going to the console, and it indicates that we should enter another integers to make comparisons. Here I would like to enter like 30, right? And then I will go back to the thread and the variables to watch the whole process to make the comparison. Here now we have input the number 30, and currently once we click the step into, okay, the line 15 has been executed. So here the number is updated from 20 to 30. However, although the cursor which pointing to the next lines we are going to execute. But as you can see now, the count is equal to 1, and then it indicates that it is false because count currently is 2. We can use, if you are using the debug mode, you can observe the values for each instance, for each variables. Now, since count is no longer to be 1, so let's go to the next equation. That means it will fall into the else if statement and compare the number which currently is referring to 30 and the small which is referred to the 30, that this 30 is get from the last iteration, the previous iteration that we assign the first integers to the small. And then as you can see here, it also indicates that the number smaller than false. Or we say that that 30 is smaller than 20. This is false, right? This Boolean expression is false. So since it is false, we will not get into this block. Okay, let's see if I click the step into where the cursor is going to placed at. Okay, as you can see, once I click the step into, the cursor moves from the line 20 to the line 13 directly. That is because the number smaller than small is false. Since the Boolean expression is invalid, so we will not go to the else if block. Rather, we go back to the for clause to do our next round of for loop iteration. Okay, let's go. And then here the count is 3 now, and the integer is 3. That means, okay, this is the last round of comparisons we are going to make. So let's step into, and then we should go back to the console to input our last numbers. We are going to make comparisons. So here I enter 10, and I put enter. Okay, let me get back. Now here, as you can see, the number is updated to 2. And the cursor moves to the line 70, which is the application is going to execute. And here, as you can see, count equal to 1 is still false because count is currently is 3. And 3 is not equal to 1. That means the if else statement will be skipped to the else if block here. Let me step into. Okay, this is what we expected, right? So here, the cursor moves to the line 20. Now the number, as we can see, the number is 10. The small is 20, right? So 10 is smaller than 20, making this Boolean expression to be true. So that means we will get into the else if block in the next step. Okay, let's try. Oh, great. Here we move to the line 21. And then here, what we are going to do next is to assign the number to the small. That means we have to update the small. And for the small variables, the value, once we update it, it will be the same as the number. So currently small is 20 and the number is 10. And once I click the step into, okay, great. Let's see, now the small is updated to be 10. Please always remember that the highlighted cursor, the highlighted line means that this line is going to be executed while it still haven't to be executed. So it's always one step further when we are using the debug mode. And then here we have count is 3, integer is 3. We still need to make one comparison because here, as you can see, count is no longer smaller or equal to the integer. So that means the for clause is no longer valid. So we move to the next line of the code that after the for loop, which is the print statement. That is the smallest integer is something. So once we execute this line, we can see in the console, the smallest integer is 10. So that is the logic for the for loop and the code and the output. So I will upload it to the Brightspace. I expect you to write by yourself, but if you are feeling difficult to start, I would appreciate that if you can run this piece of code. I mean, you can download it from the Brightspace and run it. Just play with the code. At least you will be more familiar with the for loop. And then I will give you 15 minutes to complete or try or play with this code. Now I will go to the Brightspace. Where is my, I cannot find my, okay, it's in the F GitHub. I cannot find it now. F GitHub 12, okay, I find my code now. Okay, I uploaded the code small and which is referring to the 5.11. the problem in our textbook. It is pretty easy. So I'd like you to try. And by the way, if anyone know, I post such a message in the chat box that if anyone knows the 4 students, Daley, Ryan, Felton, Jatia, Saka, Pasa, Villalobos, Joshua. If anyone knows these 4 students, could you please tell them that if they are going to continue with our Java course, and they can reach out to me to retake. Okay, Pata, you didn't. I messaged you, so this time today you have to stay to complete the exam 1 because I didn't find your answer. But I give you a B+ in the midterm reporting. But don't worry, if you are doing good in the final and the exam 2, you can still I will still change it to A or A+ for you. But just because we don't have the midterm, so I use the exam 1 grades as the midterm grades, but you don't have it, so I temporarily put the B+ for you. But don't worry about the overall. Okay. Quite weird. I didn't receive it. Recently, CUNY is moving the email, making everything for me is, I don't know. It seems that I missed a lot of the emails. But it's okay as long as you are here today. I can open the exam 1 for you. And for the other students, don't be afraid of your grades, okay? The first semester for Java is not easy because sometimes when I was learning Java, I have a feeling that when I was learning chapter 1 to chapter 3, I have to know something in chapter 8 or chapter 11. Well, that is a little bit challenging, but once I learn everything finished, and maybe it will to be the next semester. Only in the next semester, I will have some notion or familiar with how to code. So this is the first semester of Java. So don't be afraid of making mistakes or afraid of doing bad, because I don't want to making you upset about the computer science. It's a pretty interesting major. I will give you good grades. Don't worry. Okay, then we have 10 minutes for you to practice the small code. Okay, now time is almost there, so I will switch to the next problems we are going to looking at. So our next problem is the 5.12, that is to calculating the product of the odd integers. It asks you to write an application that calculates the product of the odd integers from 1 to 15. All right, I would like to say our problems is more similar to the LeetCode now, has a sense, have a little bit taste of the LeetCode, but it's a good sign because as long as you are practicing, you can do the LeetCode after this semester. So it's you can start to practice the LeetCode problem in a pretty earlier stage. In this case, it might help you to secure the internship or job. I'm not sure because LeetCode is not everything, but if you don't practice LeetCode, and currently it's a little bit to find a job. I mean, in CS. But it's okay. You are still young. You are still only like, you didn't having complete your associate degree, so still young. But if you are almost to graduate, wow, you have to be, I mean, practice more of the LeetCode. Otherwise, it will be quite difficult for you to pass the online assessment or maybe in the interview. But that is a little bit far from now. Okay, and then I will move into the IntelliJ to code this problem. Okay, the problem is to calculate the product of all integers. Okay, let's do that. For this problem, I will also follow the same procedure. First, I will write it and then give you the demo. And after the demo, I will debug it to help you to trace the programs. So here, we are going to create a class. We say that is product odd. Fine, here, and then we create our main method, PSVM. This is the shortcut. Please always remember, PSVM is for the main method. And then after that, we have to using a variable to take the product of the integers, right? So here we declare a variable. We set it to be the type of integer, and we set the name for the variable to be the product. And we initialize it to be 1. We cannot initialize it to be 0. Why? That is because 0 multiplied any integer, they always be 0. So what we can do is only we initialize the product, initialize it to be 1, and then we multiply by some other integers, and then the result will be changed to the result of the product, the multiplication. After that, okay, like if the statement says that the problem statement that says that we are going to print the product of the odd integers from 1 to 15. So we have the range. The range is from 1 to 15. That means we are currently know how many iterations we are going to walk through, right? So in this case, in these scenarios, the best way to loop is using the for loop rather than the while, right? So we write the for clause. So, and then we initialize the first iteration. Int, suppose x is equal to 3. And here you can think for a minute why x is 3 rather than 1. And the end of the for loop is when x is bigger than 15. So the continuation condition is x is smaller or equal to 15. That is the range. And after that, since we are going to get the product of the odd integers, So the iteration variable each time should be incremented by 2. So, and here you may thinking why x is not initialize with 1. Okay, and then this might be a problem into our exam too. I'm not sure. And then let's do our for loop logic. And then since we have initialized our product and our product is supposed to be the, for example, right? The product should be 3 multiplied by 5 by 7 by 9, right? Something like this. So each time the 3, 5, 7 is updated using X. So product can be assigned by the product multiplied by X. And then that is the application. Oh no, we should give a user prompt to output the result. That's this. Okay, here should supposed to be F. Okay, fine. That is the end of this program. It's pretty simple, but you have to thinking more about the for clause, the initialization, the condition initialization and the condition termination, and each time it's incremented by 2. Why? I don't know why, and you may explore by yourself. So let's try to run this code. Now it gives me that the product is 2027025. All right. After that, I will debug it so that you can observe the variable values change. And then let me close this window and click the debug. And once I set the break point here, the program will stop at here, the line 6, and it indicates that, okay, this highlighted line to be the next line, the program is going to be execute. And currently I have one variable that is the product, which is equal to 1, because this one has been executed. And our debug starting point is line 6. After that, we will step into the program. And here we have executed the for clause here. We have our initialization of the for condition where X is equal to 3, and we can observe it through the thread and the variable tab here. And then let me click the step into, and let's watch how the product is changed. Okay, currently, please remember here, as I pointing out, the product is now 1. So what if I click move to the next? Okay, fine, great. As you can see now, product is 3. Why? Because initially the product is 1, right? And then it currently multiplied by 3, making it to be the 3. And then we go to another iteration to do the for loop. But in this time, what is the value after the first iteration? As you can see, we initialize it to be 3, right? What if I click the step into, move to the next line of code? How the X will change? Okay, please looking at here. The thread and variables tab. If I move to the next line of code, that means we have executed the for clause completely. And after the for clause, X is incremented by 2, which is expressed in the end of the for clause. That is X plus equal to. That means X is self-incremented by 2, which is equal to 3 plus 2. That is 5. So now we are going to execute the line 7. What is the product value once I execute this line? We can analyze it. Now the product previously is 3, right? This product, the second product is 3, as you can see here. And the X is 5, right? So once I clicked the step into, the product is equal to 3 multiplied by 5. That is 15. And things will keep going on. And then X will be increased by 2. And it becomes 7. And the product currently is 15, right? And then we are going to multiply the 15 with 7. And which creates the 105. And we continue doing this until now the X is 15, right? That means the for loop is going to be ended as the product, as the X plus 2 is going to be 17, which is not valid when comparing with 15. That the X is equal to 17 is over 15 now. So we will move into the next line of code after the for loop. Here, we will output this code. So we can go back to the console and then the result is printed. And this is a pretty simple code though. I will give you 10 minutes to practice it, and also I will upload it to the Brightspace so that you can, if you don't want to write, but at least I think you should download it and run it on your local machine. Okay, I have uploaded the code now. So we will continue our course on 7, 8. Okay, we will moving to our last question. That is a little bit similar to the 12. The 13 one is to calculate the factorials. The factorials are used for frequently in probability problems. The factorial of a positive integer n, write as the n is a symbol, and pronounced as n factorial. And this is equivalent to the product of the positive integers from 1 to n. So here, for our previous application, we are going to get the product of the odd numbers from 1 to 5, right? Here we are going to get the product of the 1 through 20, no matter it is odd or not odd. And it gives us some hint that we should use the type long and display the result in tabular format. So I will change to the IntelliJ, give you a demo here, there. We will now creating a class, new class. We name it factorial. And then we create our main method. Okay, fine. Oh, sorry, it seems I might change the screen. Okay, I have changed it. Okay, next, we'll have to initialize. No, I think we'd better give a user prompt that we are going to calculate the n, okay, which is referring to n okay, here. And then we will formally begin the for loop here. Since the problem statement that he advised us to using the long type. So we using the long number, we initialize is 1. And the continuing condition is the number is smaller than 20. Smaller or equal to 20. And each time, since currently we do not distinguish the odd or even, so we only increment the number by 1 for each iteration. And then here we declare our factorial, we initialize it, factorials is 1. And we're using a nested for loop to indicate the smaller. Initialize it to be 1, and the continuing condition is the small is no bigger than the number. And each time the smaller plus plus. This is a nested for loop. And within the for loop, we calculate the factorials that is equivalent to factorials multiplied by the smaller. which is incremented from smaller incremented from 1 to 20, right? And that is the factorial. Sometimes I'm thinking seems not correct. Smaller is smaller than the number. Okay, but we can track it using the debug mode. So after that, we sort our result. So here we use the placeholder. To indicate the number and factorial. Okay, here. Oh, I see. It is. Oh, I see. This is correct. But you still have problem. Okay, coding is okay. Coding is a little bit complex now. It's still indicating cannot resolve the method print line. Oh, it's supposed to be printf. I'm sorry for that. Sometimes I make mistakes. Okay, here we have the code, and it will print out a list. Here we are calculating inside the for loop, the nested one, we are calculating the factorial for each number. And the outer loop is iteration of the number. And you will see how it changes if I run this code. So here, the outer loop in the left hand side, the outer loop iterate from the 1 to 20. This is the factorial. And inside the for loop here, it will calculate the factorial for the outer index of it. For example, here, the first iteration, we have the number 1 right here. And then we will output the factorial, that is 1. And then we increment our index to 2. That means here we are going to calculate the factorial for the number 2, but it becomes 1. So it's a little bit, it seems a little bit not correct. Let me see, where is the problem? 1, 1, 2, Okay, currently I cannot find out the problem, the logic problem, but this is the way to calculate the factorial. And we may debug it to have a local weight. And we set the breakpoint in the line 6, and we click the debug mode. Now, since we do not have any variables before the for loop, so nothing is displayed here. After that, we'll have our number, which is equal to 1, and the factorials is equal to 1. Okay, that's fine for the outer loop. Inside the loop, we don't have anything because here the smaller is initialized to be 1 and the number currently is 1. That means the smaller is not bigger than number. Oh, I see. Here we should write an equal there. So we have to redo it. Oh, that looks correct now. 1. For the index 1, the factorial is only 1. For the 2, if you are going to find out the factorial for 2, it's supposed to be, I think here we can write something like this. Can I write such a symbol? Okay, I cannot. Or we write factorial. Okay, it's much clearer now. So for the factorial for 1 is 1. For the factorial for 2, it's 1 multiplied by 2, right? This is calculated by the inner for loop here. And for the 3, it is the same thing. For the 3, factorial of 3 is 1 multiplied by 2 and multiplied by 3. That is 1 multiplied by 2 is 2, 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. And now this answer is correct now. And the problems I made mistake is inside the for loop, I forgot the equal symbol there. So that makes the for loop is not doing complete for each iteration. And that is a little bit similar with the previous question, that is the product odd. So you may practice on your laptop now, and I will give you 10 minutes for that. Let me upload the code to the Brightspace. Okay, fine. I have uploaded the code in the Brightspace, and you may download it to run on your local machine, or you can write the code by yourself to make your finger more familiar with the Java. Okay, our course is ended now, and I have to remind I post a message in the chat, and on March 31st, that means the next week, Tuesday next week, we will have a chair deputy to attend our online course. That means she is going to study with you and observe the class. So please make sure you do not miss the course on that date, okay? This is the only one day that I require the attendance.
This is Wednesday?
Tuesday. Next week,
Okay.
Tuesday, we will have a deputy chair. So, and at that day, you have to open your camera.
Yes.
Yeah. In case she take your attendance, I'm just a little bit afraid about that. And I will randomly pick up you to answer some questions, but don't worry. On that day, it's a reviewing course. So what I'll do is to review the slides and then ask you some questions. Don't worry about making mistakes. It's fine, but be sure to attend. Because you know, if you are online, he can take the screenshot. Okay, sounds good, no problem. So, except for the Partha, everybody can leave. Partha, and I will stay online and you stay online. I reopen the exam 1 for you, so you have to stay with me until you complete the exam 1. For other students, you can leave now.
Have a good one.
Okay, good night, everybody. Oh, Joshua, oh, you also here. Great. No problem. Don't worry. Oh, you are, Ryan, you are also here too. Nice, nice, nice. I reopened the exam. So could you please go to the Brightspace and open the assignment? And you can roll down to the bottom of the tab of that page, and you will find the exam 1. And I will stay online until you submit your whole your exam sheet. If you have any questions, you can talk to me. And this is an open book, open internet exam. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Okay, bye.
I did it, but it's in a text file format. Would that be okay for me to just submit that?
It's okay. No problem.
Okay.